Hello, everyone. I'm Matthew Schwab. I was born in North Carolina in 1997. I'm the oldest of three boys and have lived in North Carolina my whole life. I'm brave, funny, and kind. I also have Down syndrome. But I was fortunate enough to have early intervention from the time I was a baby. So I had physical therapy, speech therapy, occupational therapy, and hippotherapy. And for years, my parents treated me just like they treated my brothers and had very high expectations. I didn't get away with anything just because I had Down syndrome. I went into an inclusive preschool and was fully included all the way through elementary school. I had an assistant who helped me stay on task and explain things if I needed some extra help. I loved elementary school and I had lots of friends. Outside of school, I participated in equestrian in Special Olympics and local community theater. I played outside with my friends and even went to a week-long bike camp to learn how to ride a bike. I had a great time, but I didn't learn much. Things for me were more difficult academically in middle school. It was a lot harder to navigate, so I went into resource classes. Outside of school, I took Taekwondo and joined a special needs community theater company and went tutoring to help me with my schoolwork. When I started high school, I went into the Occupational Course of Study program without an assistant for the first half of my freshman year was so hard for me. It was the first time that I really saw the difference between me and my peers and how Down syndrome was impacting my life. My peers were getting their driver's licenses, going off campus for lunch. They were applying to colleges, and they all seemed to be involved in romantic relationships, which at that time I did not even have a girlfriend. I was very sad and cried a lot. I had good friends who helped me through each day. Things started to get better when I got involved in the high school theater company and started a club bringing together students with and without disabilities. I began to volunteer in the community and I got my first job at Chick-fil-A where I worked for 6 years. And I started to date a very gorgeous girl. I was very involved in high school and even got a Spirit Award when I graduated. I joined chorus and earned my International Thespians Society Chord. After I finished high school, I kept working at Chick-fil-A, did some continuing education at a local community college. After I finished high school, I kept working at Chick-fil-A, did some continuing education at a local community college. I completed Project Search, which included 3 internships in the North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services. I was chosen to be an intern for Representative John Bradford in the North Carolina House of Representatives. I worked for him 2 times, and I also worked on 2 of his re-election campaigns. For 60 years, I volunteered, then became an employee of 321 Coffee, a company that employs people with disabilities. I worked for the North Carolina GOP, AMC Movie Theater, and even as a girls' volleyball coach. I got involved with GiGi's Playhouse, which is a Down syndrome achievement center. I've been a volunteer since 2015 and now serve on the board of managers. I also serve on the board of managers for First Families of North Carolina. My first real speaking engagement was on World Down Syndrome Day in 2014 at the North Carolina Governor's Mansion. My mom realized I wasn't nervous at all, which is weird when someone speaks in public. So we decided to look for some speaking opportunities, and I had several engagements as well. So in 2018, we started my public speaking business, Matthew Schwab Speaks, to help change the way the world views Down syndrome. In 2019, I gave a TEDx talk. I talked about the importance of employing people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. I had a great opportunity to speak to groups large and small, all across the country, in person and virtually. I've gotten 2 different awards for my advocacy. I am adventurous, and I love to do things to show that Down syndrome is not a barrier to a full life. I went skydiving for my 21st birthday and went rappelling down an 18-story building to bring awareness for GiGi's Playhouse and Down syndrome on my 23rd birthday. Currently, I live in an apartment with my younger brother. In addition to public speaking, I host my own podcasts and have a fairly active Instagram following where I share info about my life and Down syndrome. I work at a restaurant and I volunteer. I love musicals, history, walking, and spending time with my family. I recently got an agent and now taking acting lessons. I filmed my first commercial. I'm hoping for other opportunities soon. Well, that girlfriend that I mentioned from high school, she is now my fiance. Yep, I'm engaged. We've dated for 10 years, and I have proposed to her in November, and she said yes. And our proposal went viral all over social media. We spend lots of time together, cooking, playing Wii, and going to movies. We've been ballroom dancing for the last 3 years and counting. We hope to marry soon and start our life together. I love having Down syndrome, and I like to share my perspective as an adult living with Down syndrome. I started Matthew Schwab Speaks to help change the way the world views Down syndrome. My story inspires parents of young children with Down syndrome. It also shows community members, employers, and even family members what is possible. I love sharing my story. I like to end by thanking my mom for suggesting that I become a public speaker and advocate. I'd like to thank my whole family and my fiance for their support. Along the journey, I had Down syndrome before I was born. I'll have it my whole life. But as you can see, it is just one part of me. Feel free to notice my differences, but please focus on the overwhelming ways I am just like you. My future for my public speaking business is something that sometimes I think about, and I want to spread my message as far as it can get, no matter if it's national or internationally. And I want to change the way the world views Down syndrome. And I can't just change the way the world views Down syndrome when I'm only doing that in the United States. And I think it's very, very important for me to break down the misconceptions of Down syndrome and educate others about Down syndrome, because the Down syndrome, there's not a whole lot of resources out there and not a lot of employment opportunities for adults with Down syndrome. So for those who want to learn more about my business and to book me for speaking engagements, please visit MatthewSchwabSpeaks.com, and you can book me for any speaking engagements. I'd like to thank the people who have supported me my entire life, including my family, and for the young adults with Down syndrome. I want to say that Down syndrome is not who you are; is a part of you. Just treat your lives like the way you want. Just treat your life the way you want to be treated, and love yourself or who you are. And no matter if you have a disability, our lives are the same. We have the same hobbies, the same jobs, the same opportunities to volunteer. And so even though we may have a disability, but our lives are very much typical. Thank you very much.